Good morning and welcome to the first A4Q Global Testing Summit, hosted by the Alliance for Qualification. We are excited to welcome more than 20 leading experts from all around the world to discuss insights and future trends in the software quality industry. I am delighted to welcome our first speaker of the day. Geoff Thompson is a founding member of the International Software Testing Qualification Board and chairman of the UK and Ireland Testing Board. With more than 30 years of experience, he's a leading expert in the field of software testing and software quality management. Today, he is sharing his experience from the industry and teaches you how to become a great test manager that delivers high quality results in a satisfactory outcome. We are looking forward to your presentation. The stage is yours, Geoff Thompson.
Thank you very much for inviting me to speak. It's really good to get an opportunity to talk to the world. So I should say good morning, good evening, good afternoon. As you just heard, I've got a lot of experience in software testing, and what I want to try and do today, in the short space of time I have, is to give you an overview of some of the things I've learned when it comes to test management. So whilst you're reading the marketing slide about my company, let me tell you a bit more about the background to why I want to talk to what I'm talking to you about today. So I've been a tester, a test manager, a program manager, a program test manager, and during that time, I've learned a lot about how people interact and the difference it makes when you have a good team working for you and you lead them properly to a positive solution. So let's start down that journey of what does make a good test leader. So does creating a Gantt chart and running a Gantt chart make you a good test leader? Does producing reports regularly to tell the project what's going on make you a good test leader? It helps. It's part of how we do what we do. It's what we're trained when we talk about management. We're trained to have a plan. We need to know what we're doing, what tasks need to be completed, what else needs to be done. We know we have to communicate to our masters and our stakeholders. But does that make me a good test leader? If I actually just produce these, will I have a successful project? And the answer is there's a component missing. And that component is the people. So the people are the most important part of our projects. Without the people, we don't have any success at all. I have run many complex projects and had many issues, but probably the hardest issue of all is making sure I've got a team who work with me and work together. But if I've got a team of testers, I've got a team of people, that's all well and good. I could have 10 people working for me, but do they have the right skills? Do they have the right knowledge? How do they work as a team? Can they work as a team? And are they motivated to do a good job? So what I really want to talk about today, the Gantt charts and the reporting are all things we learn as process. That's process, that's important, that is critical to a success. However, managing the people is the most important aspect to me. And therefore I want to talk today about some of the softer skills in doing that. So if we look at that list there, excuse me, do we have the right skills and the right knowledge? So what do I mean by right skills and right knowledge? So there are many different skills and knowledge that your testers will need, and dependent on the work they're doing will depend on the skill that they need. Domain knowledge for people working at the higher end of the life cycle, UAT, etc., is critically important. And that can include things like experience working in the particular business stream. It can include the understanding of their business process and sometimes their technology. So without that, you would struggle to have an effective amount of knowledge to do UAT. IT skills for testers, probably if you looked at me, if I'd done this presentation 10 years ago, you wouldn't have seen IT skills on the list because most of our testing was manual with a little bit of automation. Today, automation dominates what we do. And without IT skills, we're unable to fulfill. So what I mean here is a basic understanding of Java or C# or whatever is quite critical given that we will automate a lot of our testing and you need to understand how development works so you develop your tools in the correct way. Of course, we're going to need tester skills. What else does ISTQB provide? ISTQB will give us the stuff that ISTQB gives us is what we need those people to have. Need to understand what the different test deliverables are, how to write a test script, how to develop tests. And as a team, they need their own soft skills. So as a test manager, I need to understand the soft skill aspect of the business. But from the individuals, they need to work as a team. They need to be able to talk to each other. They need to communicate. So soft skills is also a very key part of their drive. But if we step back to the skills knowledge question, there is another aspect to this that's really, really important, and it links to the softer skills, and that's the team working together as a group. In my many years of working, I've used the Belbin approach to identify what my team is capable of many times with great success. So I'd like to recommend you guys go and look at it. Check it out on the internet. So the background is in the 1970s, a guy called Meredith Belbin had a theory that there was some connection between the skills and the interaction of the team to the success of the team. And he performed some research which found that a lot of teams that failed were not failing because of intellect, so their ability to do the job. They were failing around behaviour and how they behaved together. So he recognised their strengths and weaknesses in that approach and identified 9 core, what he called team roles. And a team role is a tendency to behave or contribute or interrelate with each other in a particular way. And he split them into 3. So we have the action stuff, which is complete or finish. So the guy who's chasing because the end date is coming near. You need somebody who's conscious that you finish, otherwise you keep going. The implementer, the guy who's ensuring that we have everything. And the shaper, the guy who is actually listening to what people are doing and making sure we're heading in the right direction. Then there's the social aspect. The guy or the girl who actually works within the team to coordinate activity, or the resource investigator who'll find you things that you need. If you need a PC, if you need a desktop, if you need a laptop, if you need a table, if you need an office, And the team worker, the guy that arranges the after work meals and the after work beers. And then finally, you need the thinking people, the people that are monitoring what you're doing and evaluating it. So making sure that it actually is what you're supposed to be doing. The plant who'll inject new ideas, probably at the most awful time, but will actually start the group thinking again. And the specialist who has a key skill in the area you're working in. So in principle, you need all of these 9 skills in the group. They don't all need to be, you don't need 9 people. A person could have a multitude of these skills, but as a test manager, what you're recognizing is if you don't have any of those skills. So for example, if I didn't have a resource investigator in my team, then maybe I had to step up and do some of that. But effectively with a team of people, you can do this. Now, what drives that team then to success is motivation. It's what brings them together. I'm sure you've all heard of the carrot and stick approach, which is very old-fashioned and is designed around the principle that if you're riding on the back of a donkey and you put a carrot in front of his face, he will move forward. If you hit him with a stick, he might also move forward, but he won't be very happy. So the point here is we give gifts and we give pain. Well, that's not what I'm talking about. What is motivation and who needs motivation is really the core question. And motivation is something that drives you to do a good job, drives you to do something different. So for example, if you are thirsty, you will have been motivated to find water and obviously drink it. And in a team scenario, the key thing is that every member of that team needs to be motivated to do a good job. But they all potentially need different motivational things to happen. Different people are driven by different needs and desires. So if we think about motivation for a moment, one of the easiest things to do is to think about how is somebody demotivated. So if you're thinking about somebody who's demotivated, you might see poor timekeeping. You might see them being uncooperative and argumentative. You might see them just being disruptive, just helping to destroy the whole project. You might see them as unhappy, or you might see them as lethargic. Now, this is where the warning comes in. So what I'm talking about here are some quite sophisticated soft skills. So although these may be things that you see and you recognize as they're not very motivated, Some of the things that might influence these may not be anything to do with the office and you. So I'm not suggesting that we should all suddenly start monitoring our staff and reacting and trying to do something, because actually there's a skill in understanding the background to why this happens. So it's a bit of a red warning, is do not just suddenly start, oh, you've got poor timekeeping, you're demotivated, come and tell me what your problems are, because actually you've got to be the right, you need the skills to manage that. So all of this needs a little bit of training before you do it. But in principle, let's assume that the person who is demotivated isn't happy at work. So what would make them happy? So a lot of people will be thrown into a job and they won't know what's expected of them. So that will demotivate them. Yeah, so think about that. Make sure all of your team know what they're supposed to do. And the greatest motivator is giving people time and training so that they can then do their job better. Although what I would say is, historically, we're very good at throwing people into training courses long before they need to use the skill that they're going to that they need. So we need to time that training properly, because that's also demotivating. Just putting them on a training course and they can't use what they've learned and they want to is very, very frustrating for people. Once they've got that skill, it's you giving them the opportunity to use it and use it regularly. And push that through so that as they go through, they learn more, their job gets enriched, they're just very enthusiastic because they suddenly feel part of a team, they can contribute properly. However, when we look at motivation, there are other things that impact motivation. So Hertzberg came up with his motivation theories, and he had two aspects to that, which are hygiene factors and motivators. Now, hygiene factors, if you haven't got them, they will demotivate people, but they won't necessarily motivate them, but you need them. And motivators is the thing that take you into your paradise world of loving what you do. So if we look at what we mean by that, so a hygiene factor when you're working in a project is it's company policy and process, things that you know what you've got to do. I've got to log my time. How do I do that? Right, oh, there's the process. I can do that. The worst thing is when you're sitting there and everybody's saying, log your time, but you have no clue how to do it. Yeah. The way you're supervised has a big influence on your motivation. The more junior you are, the more supervision you need to help you to get through. The relationships, if they exist, they will enable you to do the job. But if they're not there at all, it will demotivate people. Your working conditions. So the working conditions you're working on a day-to-day basis. If it's dirty, it's unclean, there's no drinks, there's no food available, all those kind of things, that's going to demotivate you. But actually having them there will just make you happy to be at work. And salary, the famous money problem that everybody says motivation is money. Well, the reality is, after 50 years of working, I can assure you that a salary rise is great for about 30 seconds until you've worked out how to spend it, and then suddenly you're back where you were 2 hours ago with not enough money to do everything you want to do. But if you haven't got salary and you're not earning enough, that's a demotivator. Yeah. So if you look at the motivation side of things, recognizing somebody's done a good job is a great motivator. It could be a thank you. It doesn't have to be money. It doesn't have to be anything. Just be great, recognition. So they feel they've succeeded. They've had an achievement, and we recognise that. Often the work itself can, a lot of us testers love what we do. So keep me testing. Yeah. Some level of responsibility. Different people will be motivated. If they're given responsibility, they feel more needed and more motivated. Some people don't want that, so you need to understand. Yeah, advancement. Some people want to grow in the company. Some people have a target of being a senior manager within 10 minutes. So actually helping them do that will motivate them, make them want to come to work. And obviously growth of the individual in themselves. So you have to be very careful how you balance motivation. So I said it's not a simple subject. So I'm not expecting people to walk away from this and do everything I'm telling you, but I'd like you to think about it and maybe get training if you think it's something you'd like to learn. So once you've got this motivation, how do you keep it? How do you keep things going? Well, one of the things you can do is you start to delegate. So we all talk about delegation in any management role as an important aspect. Yeah, we like to delegate, and to be a manager, you need that process. Yeah, you need, because it saves you time. Yeah, you can't do everything, so you need to delegate some of that. The benefit of delegation is it helps in that development process, because you can challenge people to do more and do things differently. It can help you identify and prepare a successor to take over from you. And it provides quite a lot of individual motivation, that there's a focus that actually I'm saying, here you are, would you like to do this for me? Poor delegation, on the other hand, can actually create frustration. If I delegate to somebody who's not ready for delegation, then they're lost, they're confused, they don't know what they're doing. It can demotivate in that case and confuse them, and it can enable, effectively make you fail. So the path to delegation is, I call it the delegation motorway, for want of a better word. But there are many, many steps that you can take, and you can enter this path at any point. So if we take Joe, who's a brand new tester, very little experience, you would possibly start Joe with a bit of delegation where you ask him to do exactly what you say. I'd love you to do this for me, Joe. Create this plan, and this is how you do it. And you don't overbearingly manage them, but you provide them with support while they're doing that. But if you've got somebody who's got lots of experience, you may go straight in and just do it. Just manage it and tell me how you sort that problem, and then tell me when you've done it. But there are lots of steps in the way where you can say, actually, I've got the person I wish to delegate to has got some knowledge, so maybe I'll ask them to just find out what the issue is and come back to me and talk to me before we go any further. Or I might ask them to come up with what might be the solutions, and I'll review those. So you're just slowly letting go of people. And the way I look at that is it's a way of giving empowerment to your staff, and that empowerment is a great motivator. However, how do you get people to do these things? Well, you need to negotiate with them. You need to be able to negotiate. It's something we do every day, yeah? So what we're talking about when I talk about negotiation is to arrange or settle by discussion and mutual agreement something. John F. Kennedy said, let us never negotiate out of fear, but let us never fear to negotiate. It's part of our daily life. And it occurs when somebody wants something that somebody else has got, and they're prepared to bargain for it. In a team situation, it's about moving people towards a mutually acceptable agreement that means both parties are comfortable. Technically, and the best, if you read all the books, it'll tell you win-win is the good answer, or lose-lose. But a win-lose can often cause you demotivating activity. Yeah, if somebody thinks they've been let down and somebody thinks that they're suddenly really successful, you can create a conflict. You need to be cautious. Sometimes it happens that way, but you need to be cautious of it. So you need to be well prepared to negotiate. You need to know what it is that drives the individual so that the negotiation is properly focused. And most importantly, as a manager, it's about listening, understanding what that person needs and wants. It's something we do in everyday life. I've got grandchildren. When they come around, they will negotiate with me to get my chocolate biscuits that I hide around the house. Yeah, where have you got them this time, Granddad? So it's something we do naturally as human beings. But actually, in the testing scenario, it's really important with the team, particularly when you're talking about things like timescales and budgets and scope and deliverables. We're negotiating with our superiors how much money we're going to be allowed to spend, how much time we're going to have available. When we have our daily defect triages, we're looking at priority and severity and negotiating what the answer should be. It's about test tools. You're all purchasing them. We might need staff. There are lots of things that we can negotiate in a team scenario. And there are two different ways of doing it. That, in my humble opinion, there are two different ways of doing it, pushing and pulling. Now, the push style is effectively where you're pushing your answer onto somebody. And that'll happen because maybe the relationship's immature, you're not sure how you would operate, and there's no threat that they won't accept the proposal anyway. Maybe there's a high degree of trust in place, and maybe there's a recognition that as the person negotiating, you have the skills. So it's about influencing them with a convincing proposal, giving them all the right information, and defending that proposal so they accept that it's the right thing to do. Now, obviously, push isn't the only style. As I said, pull is also another style that is out there. And this is the other way around. This is about working together to negotiate a solution. And that'll happen when there's a group of people with strong opinions and they all think their answer's right. So you've got to come to a conclusion. There's some uncertainty in what the solution really is. So let's talk about it to play safe. Or you've got a new relationship where you don't really know the person well enough to know whether you can trust them or not, whether they're telling you the truth. So you're asking for more information to understand. And often it's used when the push style has failed. If you try to push something in, then you step back and say, right, now this time let's talk about it and let's understand more. So the way you play it is you're actually identifying the needs of the other person and then mapping your solution to their needs. It's all about how well you ask questions and how well you communicate with them. So, and it is actually the aspect of this that's the strongest part is it's all about relationship building. So you're actually working with an individual to build a relationship that enables you to get the solution that you want to have in place. So those last few slides have touched on some quite extensive areas of research that have gone on out there, and I've run through them in 10 minutes. So yeah, they're not as simple as they sound, but they are key elements. Yeah, remembering that when you're a test manager, you are leading a team, hopefully to a successful conclusion. So moving yourself to the point where the quality and the testing you do gives the customer exactly what they want. So leadership becomes the key element of this. So excellent test management does require both the practical methodology. So we're talking about, the understanding of how you test, the understanding of how you write a Gantt chart, the understanding of how we do weekly, daily, monthly, hourly reports, depending on how you do that. But it also is involving a significant amount of understanding of the softer side of the human interaction. And that's not straightforward, and most people can't do that without some help. And there are lots of training courses out there that you can go on to understand all this stuff. So if you're equipped with that practical capability and you've got the softer skills, you can become more than a test manager. You can become a test leader. And a guy called Russell E. Ewing tried to differentiate between what you would call a test manager, so somebody who's just doing their job, to somebody who's leading. And in this instance, we'll call him the test boss, because test manager is a more generic role. So we're saying a test boss, somebody who is controlling. So test boss will create fear in his team. So that will work for a while. If you've got a very short-term project, if you're scared of your boss, you'll do your job. But if that is to be a longer-term relationship, that's not going to work. So the test leader needs to create confidence in their people. They're driving their people to do more and more and become more of themselves. A test boss fixes blame, whereas a test leader corrects mistakes. So what I mean by that is a lot of companies say, we don't have a blame culture here. And then as soon as something goes wrong, 4 people are put in front of the managing director and they're shouted at. Well, that's fixing blame. Yeah. Everybody makes mistakes. We should be given the opportunity to learn from those mistakes and develop, so get that confidence in our ability. A test boss is a know-it-all. So I've done this before, I know what I'm doing, you listen to me. Whereas a test leader asks questions. Do you know how to do this? 40 years ago when I started work, I saw a video that basically said every problem could be solved by the staff that are working for you if you ask them. Yeah, everybody knows the answer. If you don't ask, you don't get the answer. So it's all about communication. A test boss makes work a drudgery. I've got to go to work today. He's going to shout at me again. He's going to tell me off. A test leader will make the day interesting. Yeah, a test leader is the kind of guy that says at lunchtime, I'll buy the pizzas, or he'll bring somebody in who's got some knowledge that you don't have, and he'll brown bag sessions, all that kind of stuff. They'll make life interesting. And a test boss is just interested in themselves. I'm doing this because I want to be successful, rather than somebody who wants the group to be successful, wants the team to achieve some greater goal. So if you are a test manager today and you want to be a great test leader, go take these slides, go look at Belbin, go check out motivational skills, go check out delegation skills, understand more about negotiation, and you will become a great test leader. Thank you.